the Gale Encyclopedia of Pregnancy and Childbirth, Davidson and A.M. estimate less than 1% of births in America are water births. And that's not even a hard statistic. And basically what that means is there haven't been enough water births in America for there to be a statistic on water births in America. And water births has actually been around for a very long time. The first recorded water birth was in 1803 in France. So here are 3 steps to doing your own home water birth. First, collecting a medical professional. Second, getting a birthing pool. The third and final step is day of delivery when you give birth to the baby. Though water birth is not a very popular form of alternative birth, it has been making a huge comeback. Lots of women who have had water births report a very peaceful and euphoric experience with their birth. This information comes from the Gale Encyclopedia of Pregnancy and Childbirth, the New York Times, and an academic journal. So now that we've gone into the basic steps, I want to go in deeper with the first step, getting a nurse or midwife. And when I say nurse or midwife, you can totally have both. You don't have to have one or the other. You can have a nurse and a midwife, 2 midwives, a midwife, nurse, and doctor. So where can you even find a nurse or midwife experienced with water birth? When you get pregnant, one of the first things you do is get an obstetrician. Now, the obstetrician will be able to refer you to a nurse, midwife, or doctor who's had experience in delivering into the water. So what really is the difference between a nurse and a midwife? Well, a midwife can only handle low-risk pregnancies. They cannot do surgery, and they are allowed in hospital birthing centers, of course, in your home, if you allow. Here is our midwife. It's kind of a rough picture. You can see the mother here and the father in the back. And that's kind of what a midwife does. Whereas a nurse is a trained medical professional in all medical practices. So here is our nurse, you can see, and she's doing her care, her mother care. This is the mother and the father. A very peaceful looking picture, but they very much look similar. Just certification is really what it's all about. So now that we've discussed acquiring your medical professional, let's continue on to getting the birthing pool. So the birthing pool, finding one is actually kind of hard. Well, not finding one, finding the right one. Because birthing pools come in all shapes and sizes and actually different materials. So some are inflatable and others are hard shelled, which means it's a rigid plastic tub that you set up in your living room. And basically the real difference between these 2 kinds of tubs is your level of comfort. Many women have reported that they find the inflatable tub way more comfortable. This is our inflatable tub. As you can see, it has handles in the front and in the back. It has a little seat and it's covered in plastic. Now, of course, that doesn't sound very comfortable, but compared to the hard-shelled, it looks way better. So it's still the basic premise, obviously a tub. This isn't a hospital setting, clearly, but they do allow rentals of these kinds of tubs and home deliveries. These little divots here are the handles, and she is actually sitting. It's kind of hard to see, but she doesn't look very comfortable, but that might be due to labor. So wow, that was a lot of information on the birthing pools. And now that we've gotten through that, we can get to really the best part of this, which is the day of delivery. As soon as your contractions begin to come together closer, you really need to get that tub together. If it's a hard shell plastic, you're just filling it up. If it's an inflatable, you really need to start that early so it's ready when you're ready. In a 2019 article from Midwifery Matters, Amma describes her second home birth. By the time the pool was ready, I was desperate to get in. The bath had been nice, a warm, peaceful cocoon, but now I was craving space. Now, even if your plan is to birth in the pool, you need to be prepared for some emergencies. The medical professional that you have chosen will determine if you actually deliver into the water or if you need to get out before the baby delivers. Skora describes in an article from the New York Times, water birth practitioners must be trained well. They also must know whether they can or cannot deliver this baby in the water. When in doubt, get out. And finally, when the baby is actually born, it is okay that they're in the water. The diving reflex usually stops them from gasping that first breath of air, but it's still important that as soon as they're in the water, to begin lifting them head first very slowly. So this is our baby that has just come from the water very slowly. This time, I believe this is a midwife who is actually delivering this one. There were a lot where it said nurse and midwife or just nurse. It's really hard to tell. They very much dress the same. So now that we've gotten to the end, you've had the baby, it's time to recap. So remember, the first and most important step is getting your midwife, nurse, or whatever medical professional you want present. And second, the other important step, of course, is getting your birthing pool. And that is also something that is done early in order to make sure you have the correct pool for your home. And finally, the last day where everything comes together, you get your pool set up, the midwife shows, and it is time to deliver. And at that point, you are in the hands of your midwife. Though water births are not very popular currently, water births, like a lot of things, are actually coming back in our lives, whether that's in a good way or in a bad way.